Get started, so grab a seat. We're just having a few people come on in.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. Have a seat. All right, everybody, listen up. We are going to get started. So tonight we're talking about community wildfire preparedness. So I really appreciate everybody coming. We've got a really good, diverse set of the community from Silverton tonight. Just to introduce myself, Jim Donovan. I'm the emergency manager with San Juan County. And the structure of the evening is going to be some presentations just to give you all some knowledge. And then we're going to have 2 panels. So I want you all to listen to the presentations, get some good information, and then really at the panels will be a lot of discussion. So just to get started, all of the agencies will get their chance to show up as we're going through the presentations. So tonight, before actually we start getting into details, I did want to give a shout out to the event that is coming up on the 29th and 30th. It's the Silverton Community Cleanup event, and it's got a wildfire focus. So with that focus, we have had both the town and county do a wildfire days proclamation. So that's how much they are behind the idea of wildfire preparedness. So big shout out to our town public works crew. They're going to be really managing this event. So it's going to be a good chance for all of us to not only clean up our own areas, but also to get them to clean up. So just to run through the agenda, we're going to just talk about what is our community wildfire protection plan, wildfire risk in Silverton, in San Juan County, in living with wildfires, wildfire resiliency around your homes, and then wildfire adaptive partnership. We'll talk about that program. Then we'll have a panel on prepared people and safer homes, and then landscape, watershed, and critical infrastructure. Then we'll just say what the next steps are, and then have a Q&A time. So we are here to talk about our local wildfire risk. The other is to gather community input and then focus on useful preparedness actions. So understanding our wildfire risk, sometimes San Juan County has been referred to as the Teflon forest, but I do want to emphasize we've had lots of wildfires in our area and in our county. So Missionary Ridge, 416 fire. Just real quick, who has been here? Who was here during the 416 fire? All right, a good number of folks. 416 fire never actually got into San Juan County, but the impacts were rather severe. Then the ice fire, that also was a very small fire, but had a big impact. It happened very late in the season, so it's a very unusual fire. Then just last season, we had the Stoner Basin fire, Elkhorn fire, and the Snowshed fire. Those all had impacts on our community. So we're updating our community wildfire protection plan, and that really guides us on how we're going to do wildfire preparedness and protection. So the plan, our current plan was written in 2013, so we're going to capture a lot of new information. So this is where our community comes in, everybody in this room. We identify the priority areas that we're concerned about, then the evacuation concerns, community concerns,
wildfire mitigation projects. And those all go to help for future grants and projects. So tonight, I just want this to be a classic Silverton thing of making sure you've got good ground rules, but also to make it where folks can have lots of questions through the evening. So I do want to make sure that we keep focused on wildfire preparedness, mitigation, evacuation, forest health, and infrastructure. So we'll just limit it to those areas. So working sessions, after we've done all of this, if you haven't already filled out a questionnaire, make sure you do fill out a questionnaire this evening and we'll collect those. This questionnaire is very important. This just helps us capture all of the information. So we also have quite a few agency representatives out in the front room who are experts in wildfire. So if you have questions that you get out of this evening or already have questions, you can go ask them and get some more information. And like I said, we do want very honest feedback, difficult questions, and make it very action oriented. So just to give a snapshot on why Colorado is really concerned about wildfire this year, I hope you can see this map all right, but this is the whole state, and you can see that San Juan County is right here, and we're in extreme drought conditions. Earlier, very early spring, we were actually in exceptional drought conditions. So things are very much primed up for a basically a significant wildfire year. This map shows that significant wildfire potential for looking at until June, so you can see the entire western slope of Colorado is in the red. So local wildfire risk, we look at a lot of different factors. Our terrain, weather, you look at our homes, where people are dwelling, public lands, and we look at that access and evacuation and what systems are at risk. So we think about water, power, communications, transportation, and emergency access. So this map shows wildfire risk for homes in San Juan County, and this is compared for the whole state of Colorado. So we're actually kind of in the middle of 51%, and basically the red is really bad, and as you get lesser, you have lower risk. But you can see it does pool around populated areas in the county. And then where are we going to do wildfire risk reduction is basically the populated areas. So we can discuss that in more detail. It also shows where basically the direct exposure is to wildfire, those red dots. And we'll zoom in on Silverton. So this is an example of direct exposure. So basically any area around town, more in the forest, it's more direct exposure, and less in town. So basically, if things light up here, chances are they're going to light up in the middle of town. So how to participate tonight, ask any clarifying questions, if something doesn't make sense. Our Dana White back there, Dean Gallegos, will help manage that. Then we have maps stationed around, and this is a unique thing where you get to draw on the map. So if you have filled out the questionnaire, then you can come onto the map here and circle areas that you have questions or concerns about. And you can then write them here or use sticky pads. So we really encourage people to write on the maps. We will collect that information and that will help us with wildfire cleanup. So while you're filling out the questionnaire, ask your neighbors, ask whoever you're sitting with at the table, any questions on what they think, we really want to get into details. Then we will give you some good action steps at the end of the week. So any questions so far? All right. With that, you will have Kevin Linder from the San Juan National Forest will give us a presentation on why wildfires are important for just a part of the ecosystem.
Great, thanks, Jim. Hey everyone, I'm Kevin Linder. I am your fire prevention and education officer for the San Juan National Forest. And Jim had asked me to come speak with you guys about living with wildfire in San Juan County and maybe a little bit of context about wildfires. Not just that they happen, but maybe why or how they happen or how often they could be or maybe historically occurred here in the greater San Juan County area. So I've been here in Southwest Colorado for a while. I guess I started fire in 2009. I've been here since 2011. So I've fought a fair number of fires here in Southwest Colorado over the past about decade and a half. So this slide is just kind of giving you guys an insight into what our fire load on the San Juan National Forest looks like. I love numbers, I love statistics, so I'm gonna share them with you. So I'm sure you guys have heard or maybe seen some social media out there. There's this nice statistic that says 85 to 87% of wildfires nationwide are human caused. And that is indeed true, but this picture, this graph here that is nice and bleached out in the sun, it tells a different picture. Thankfully for us here in Southwest Colorado, we don't follow that national number. And in fact, for us, we're generally 75% naturally occurring lightning caused fires and roughly 25% human caused fires. So that's just kind of a starting point for us. Is we have a lot more naturally occurring fires than we have human caused fires, but they are both significant. And we'll get into why. So again, apologies for getting washed out, but this map right up on the screen is showing our natural or historical fire regimes of Southwest Colorado. So in kind of your red or orange, that's kind of in our ponderosa pine belt. And that's where we would see regularly occurring, low to moderate intensity surface fire. We come from lightning and you would have fire in those ponderosa pine forests regularly occurring anywhere between 15 to 35 years. They were kind of regularly occurring, and because they did, you wouldn't have these really catastrophic, huge wildfires in that ponderosa belt. But as we start moving up towards San Juan County, you start seeing a lot more greens and lighter greens. So dark green, kind of the heart of San Juan County here, that's speaking to that's our cool mixed conifer forest. And that's where the fire return interval is a lot greater. So mixed conifer, generally cooler, wetter. It doesn't, fires don't carry through mixed conifers as regularly as they do in like our ponderosa forest at lower elevations. So that kind of sets us up for landscape scale events. It takes a certain set of conditions for the mixed conifer out here to actually burn. It takes prolonged drought. It takes, generally occurs later in the summer when we've had months and months of drying out and we have the monsoons have passed. We're getting into late summer, early fall, things are earnestly dry, and then the mixed conifer can become available to burn. And that return interval is so long, it doesn't happen very often. It's because when those fires occur in like these mixed conifer forests, they're landscape scale stand clearing events. They're large catastrophic wildfires. They're very, very challenging to suppress because mixed conifers, a lot of those tree species are adapted to live and die by fire. They cannot physically produce new trees without fire coming through, knocking the cones off the trees, melting the waxes and opening up those cones. So fire in the mixed conifer surrounding, San Juan County, in the mixed conifer can be really, really catastrophic. And again, really, really difficult to suppress. And why does that matter? So up on the slide there, you'll see naturally occurring fire coming via lightning versus human caused fires coming by any one of our, I guess, for lack of a better term, stupid human tricks that we use to start fires, mostly accidental. So when we have fires that come from lightning, generally speaking, they occur under moderating conditions. We don't get lightning bolts out of the blue sky. Generally, there's clouds, there's some version of precipitation, and it's just not the hottest, driest day at the end of June that fires occur via lightning. But us as humans, we can start fires on those hottest, driest, windiest days where wildfires can get away from us very quickly. So in areas like San Juan County and mixed conifer, if you were to have a human caused wildfire on the hottest, driest, windy days where the fuels in the mixed conifer are receptive, you could easily have a catastrophic event that gets away from the ability to suppress it quickly. Because us as humans, again, we can start fires on the hottest, the driest, the windiest days. So us as humans, when we accidentally start fires, they are disproportionately more catastrophic in nature because of the conditions that they start. So. All right. Well, in the instance of fire, whether it's human caused or it comes via lightning, there's going to be a response to it. So that comes from the Forest Service, the Wildland Fire Service, your local departments, or anyone in between. They'll initiate a response to it. These two pictures that you cannot see are drastically different. One of those pictures is from a fire we had a couple years ago on the east side of the forest. It was well away from anything that we would term a value at risk, whether that's a home, sensitive infrastructure, or anything. It's just a lightning caused fire back for you. And the other picture you cannot see is a wall of fire coming down a subdivision on the border of California and Nevada. And so those are occurring under drastically different circumstances, and those are going to receive a drastically different wildfire response. So if this, we have this subdivision here, we have a wall of fire that's coming down on it. We are going to move heaven and earth to stop it and preserve as much life and property as. But I just bring up this slide to say that, fire management occurs on a scale. Every incident is evaluated uniquely. There's not just a stop standard response that is given to any single fire. And just a little bit about our capacity as the Forest Service. We have a lot of capacity here in Southwest Colorado. We have 3 ranger districts that's stocked with fire personnel. We have fire engines. We have 2 helicopters. We have an air tanker base at the Wildfire County Airport that serves not only us here in the Four Corners, but it serves the Front Range. It serves the Albuquerque. It serves southeastern Utah. It's a great asset to your community, our community. We have a hot shot crew based out of Durango, a whole bunch of wildland fire modules. So there are a ton of hardworking young men and women who serve you guys on a day-to-day basis. All right. So what does the future of fire in Southwest Colorado look like? And Jim mentioned it about these outlier events, and kind of in the first bullet points, there's you'll see, we've kind of moved from what used to be a historical fire season, kind of in that April to October realm, to more of a fire year, to where we start having these events that are occurring outside of our typical season, like the ice fire or the Marshall fire or the Palisades out in California. We have all these incredibly catastrophic events that are occurring well outside of fire season, and they're becoming more and more frequent. And that is part of the CWPP revision, is to keep your community up to date with fire and our fire year. So, kind of part of why we see a little bit of shift in our fire season here in Southwest Colorado is a little bit of movement away from our historical monsoon pattern. It used to be, we would see that the monsoon pattern come late July. We would get some subtropical moisture coming up from the Gulfs. We would get some, a number of small lightning fires, but they were relatively contained because they came with rain. But now, in the past, certainly 5 years, I can't hang my hat on a monsoon forecast to save my life. It's always, yeah, it's coming, and then it doesn't show up. Or, yeah, it's gonna be strong this year, and then it doesn't show up at all. Or somewhere in between. So that kind of contributes to this fire year, these typical patterns that we used to rely on or become accustomed to or plan around, that's not necessarily the world that was living in. So stack onto that a highly variable snowpack. We had something that resembled the winter this year, but I'm certainly, for you guys here in Silverton, it was not nearly anywhere near what you guys would expect historically. I live in Durango West, just outside of Durango, and I shoveled 3 times this year. Started my snowblower once. That is atypical. So you start stacking all these factors on top of each other, and you get to that bottom line there, and that's the major wildcard is, are we gonna have some sort of pest infection? Is there some sort of novel beetle that's new to our area, or is there gonna be a resurgence of some sort of endemic species that we're having that lives here now on account of, stressed forest health because of the lack of nutrition? So everything compounds on top of itself to lead to these somewhat unpredictable fire seasons, because our weather modeling is becoming more and more challenging. The monsoon patterns have kind of gone. So all of these are compounding factors. When you throw these any sort of new novel pest incursion, it could really throw a wild card into community if we have catastrophic wildfire in this mixed conifer environment. Good. I won't take any more of your time, but just kind of keep hitting the nail on the head that Jim started is wildfire in Southwest Colorado will never go away. It will continue to be around, and it will continue to force us as humans to keep pace with it. If we don't keep pace with it, that's when truly catastrophic events can happen. Is if communities like you aren't proactive in revising your CWCP to stay up with the current state of our forests or our wildlands, it's to that community's peril. So as our communities continue to grow, everyone wants to have their beautiful vistas in San Juan County or Water or Archuleta or anywhere in between. We're getting, an influx of folks who want to have their dream in the wildlands, and they're welcome to it, but there is a personal responsibility that has to be taken by members of the community when they come in to prepare themselves for where they live. We live in a fire adapted ecosystem here in Southwest Colorado. So to live here, you have to be aware of that. You have to plan for it and take action. It starts at the parcel level and ends up here in the community level. You guys are working to make San Juan County, a fire resilient community by updating the CWPP. So myself and Sarah Beck is acting district ranger for the Columbine Ranger District. We'll be here all night. So if you guys have questions after this, find us and grab our ear, and we're happy to answer. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for turning out tonight. It was great to see such a good showing for an event like this. My name's Aaron Johnson. I am the Movie Professional Development Educator, it's a mouthful, with the Division of Fire Prevention and Control. So we're the state fire agency essentially. And my role is actually fairly new within our agency. I'm just gonna ask for a quick show of hands if you are familiar with the Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code. Good, actually, a fair amount of you, fantastic. For those of you who are not aware, the state of Colorado adopted a code for new construction essentially to design homes in a way that they're going to be a little bit more fire resilient. And then my job is going out and meeting with communities to educate them about what the code consists of, talk about how they can adopt the code at the local level, and set up that implementation pathway. Tonight though, I'm going to be talking to you about the resiliency of structures and how we can actually go about protecting them. So to do this, we're going to rewind the clock a little bit to the mid-90s. And we were starting to have kind of a large desire to understand why we were losing homes during fires, why we were seeing structures burn. And so 18 countries came together and participated in something called the International Crown Model Fire Experience. And so for those of you that can see it, there's these blocks of forested land that they cut out in the forest with the intention of burning those and creating a crown fire, where the fire goes from the ground to the tops of the trees and turn it into a wind-driven event and measure the distance from that highly intense fire that we would see temperatures exceed what structures could withstand. It was absolutely fascinating to see the results. Another picture that might be hard to see, but there is an image of the sensor boxes that they placed out there. And so they're just made out of plywood. They had temperature measures on there, and they placed them at 30, 70, and 100 feet away from the fire. And so here, there's actually the edge of the forest, and we have flame ice extending over. And this is the box just 30 feet away from there. And they wanted to really understand, hey, during this fire, what are we going to see? And as that ground fire hit the edge, you get this turbulent rollover of flames. Okay, most of the heat though is going up. You know, heat rises. It's being sent upwards. We get heat that radiates out. We get some convective currents. But what they found actually really surprised them. That fire, that ground fire burned in about 50 seconds. So when you think about the composition of a pine tree, you have a bunch of fine fuels, all those needles, smaller branches, and as those ignite, you get a huge release of energy. Oof. Sometimes it's almost explosive with how fast it burns. But then as all those are consumed, that temperature drops down. And so what they realized is, just like putting your hand in the oven for a second and pulling it out, you don't get burned. The passage of this fire can be so fast that homes and structures just need to withstand a high temperature for a short duration. And the thing that they found with this is that structures that were located 30 feet out stop scorching and some ignition, but at a distance of about 100 feet, they would only see scorching but no ignition. And that really showed them that, hey, if we have just 100 feet of space from a crown fire, there's a good chance that structure can survive. And so this creates the basis for what we now call the home ignition zone, creating defensible space. And the idea here is going 100 feet out from structures. That's where we want to really focus on managing our vegetation as best as we can. The goal being that if fire approaches, we want it to hit that 100-foot zone. And it's gonna start to slow down and lose fuel that it can burn. So we're gonna break that home ignition zone up into 3 areas. Zone 1 is going to be the first 5 feet out. That 5-foot area, the goal is to basically not have anything that can burn, because if we have active ignition next to the house, that's likely to get it going. That's also going to be the ember zone, which we're going to get into in just a few. In the 5 to 30-foot area, in that pocket, if we do have things that burn, trees, we want them to almost be individual trees, so that pine tree burns, it's that 50 seconds to about 1.5 minutes. It burns up quick and clean by itself before that fire continues on to the next thing, and the house isn't being subjected to a large release of heat at a single time. And then going out from there, we have our 30 to 100 feet, and the idea is in that pocket to create clumps and islands of fuel. So that's where we can have 2, 3, maybe 4 trees, depending on species that are connected. And the idea is that that island burns up completely, and then you have space before the next island burns, and that's how we slow that fire down. Now, these are general guidelines. Every forest needs to be managed, you know, an aspen forest is going to be managed very differently than a ponderosa forest. And that's where being able to tap into local resources like the Forest Service, like Wildfire Adaptive Partners, your local fire departments, to understand how to best manage your forest for the fire that you might expect, really comes into play. Be able to hear this. So this is a video by Jack Cohen. And what he is talking about here is there's actually a home with this wall of fire that they were able to document. So a photographer was on site as this fire came through here. And what they actually saw is the forest burned, but the house was on top. You had that wall of flame close to that house, but the house was undamaged. So even though we wouldn't stand there, you know, we'd be getting second, 3rd-degree burns if you're getting out that close. We can't stand there. We sometimes misinterpret that our homes can't withstand, but actually, surprisingly, they can under the right conditions. So we know how my structures burn from surrounding vegetation, from surrounding combustibles. The next thing we started to look into is, okay, why are we starting to see homes lost when fire's burning over here, coming up on the community, and suddenly we have a house that ignited a mile away in the middle of the community, 2 miles. We're getting little spot fires here and here and here. Why are these homes igniting when they're so far away from a fire? That's when we started to really pay attention to the second component of that my structures burn, which is going to be embers. So the IBHS is the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. They are a nonprofit that's backed by the insurance industry, and they're basically tasked with trying to research and understand how homes are damaged. So they have a very impressive facility that they can model ember storms, hurricane winds, hail damage. Because insurance companies are heavily invested in making sure homes are as safe as possible. But the reason we have on how my homes are being used. We don't need sound for this one, but we can just watch it. There are some text cards that pop up. So they have this stove and it's on a giant turntable here. And here they're loading pine straw into these ember generators. They have 105 fans that they can turn on as part of this. And they can simulate winds over 100 miles per hour, but for this one, they're just doing it at about 20 to 30 miles per hour. So during an ember storm, it's like a blizzard that's on fire. It's millions of embers that you can see drifting through the air. And embers can be as small as 1/8 of an inch that can cause damage up to large chunks and debris. Here we start to see ignition up in the gutters and around the base of the house where mulch was placed. And that gutter starts dripping off. And now we have active flames all around the house. Once the house is on fire, it's almost impossible for wildland firefighters to extinguish it. They're just not designed for structure fires once they get going. So this is inside the attic. And you can start to see embers slipping through the vent, creeping into those spaces. And void spaces around houses is where we see those embers sit and they can smolder. Sometimes we see homes burn 3-4 days after a fire's passed because these embers sit there. They can go and they can go and they can go. So ember protection becomes the next thing we talk about when we want to protect our structures. 90% of structure ignitions are estimated to be caused by embers. So it's not the fire coming up to your doorstep, it's not the tree burning down the street, it's those embers blowing in. Could be the tree next to you that is blowing those embers. It could be, you know, the fire that is 3 miles away. I think the record that was measured for an ember starting a fire was 21 miles in Australia. But as we're seeing a change in our weather patterns, as we're seeing more wind-driven events, we're going to see those embers travel further and further. And the embers we're seeing these days, they're different than embers that we saw, you know, 40, 50 years ago. Especially once we get into our houses, we're seeing more synthetic materials that burn in a very different way and are wafting differently. So When we're talking about ember protection, we want to think like, what we typically say is an opening as big as an eighth of an inch will let those embers in. So think about a golf tee. You can fit a golf tee through it and an ember can easily get into there. So some of the things that we want to do. This will make your eyes bleed if you try to read it. So don't look too hard. But we know the common places that embers tend to build up and accumulate and have access to combustible material. Those vents, we want to screen vents with 1/8 inch mesh. Relatively easy to find, it's cheap, it's a simple project you can do. Okay, we want to keep gutters free of debris. We don't want embers landing on the roofs, going off the roof, sitting up in those gutters, and then those gutters are breaking. Especially if they're vinyl, then they're gonna drip and melt off, and we have fire right next to the house. Right? Decks, we want to keep those clear of combustible material. Those cushions that you keep out year round, that you just lounge on, you know, if embers land on those, what's going to happen? Screening around your deck so that embers can't build up underneath there. Any place that you see debris tend to build up around your house, those pockets, those corners where you get pine needles building and leaves, debris like that. That's where those embers are going to tend to build because that's where the wind circulates and creates these little eddies where they can build up. So keep your area clean and tidy as much as possible. If you have wood siding on your house, you know, I hear a lot of people think that there's nothing you can do with wood siding. Well, as embers blow up against your house, they're gonna hit that wood siding and bounce off of it and build up at the bases of the walls. So a simple thing you can do is putting metal flashing on combustible material just 6 inches high around the bases of those walls, where those embers are gonna tend to build up. And that creates enough of a barrier that it can help reduce the likelihood of those embers starting that fire. So following me is going to be Wildfire Adaptive Partners, who do a great job of going out and actually meeting with residents to them about specifics around the home. But what I want you all to think about is when you go home, how can I manage the combustibles around the house so that if there is a fire approaching, it's going to slow down? And how can I start looking and thinking like an emperor about how my home might ignite and start thinking and asking questions? That's the big thing. Start asking questions. Every home is going to be managed slightly different. Every property is going to have slightly different recommendations, but every home can have a path forward to being wildfire resilient. And this science of how and why homes burn, it's unfortunately been backed up in real world case studies. So the Waldo Canyon fire, we saw over 250 homes burn in under 4 hours. A backing fire running downhill in the middle of the afternoon. And the homes we saw and how they ignited, it follows the patterns and reasons that we're seeing here. Okay. And we know that mitigation works. In communities where we see homes that have been built to be wildfire resilient, we see increased survivability, we see decreased losses. Okay. We're not going to stop every single home from burning through mitigation. You know, it's a tool in the toolbox. But when we're looking at our resources who are going to respond, we want to give our firefighters a fighting chance to make a difference. Okay, we want to stop whole communities from being lost, because once an entire community burns, people's lives change. They move, they can't come back. You know, jobs are lost, the community's destroyed. It takes years, decades even to rebuild that community. So let's create a wildfire resilient community that can bounce back from a wildfire as fast as possible. That's what I have.
Okay. Alex, come on up.
Okay, it's my turn to battle the sun, look directly into it. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here. My name is Alex Graff. I work for Wildfire Adaptive Partnership. By show of hands, how many folks have heard of Wildfire Adaptive Partnership before? Okay, a couple. Firewise of Southwest Colorado, it used to be called that. Anyway, we are a nonprofit. We've been around serving the 5 southwest counties of Colorado since the Missionary Ridge Fire, formerly called Firewise of Southwest Colorado, largely a volunteer-driven organization. I am tasked with giving you an overview of the organization, how we can help all you folks better understand wildfire risk. That's pretty much my job, is to help you figure out how to mitigate, what mitigation means on your property in your unique circumstance. And so I'm going to go over a bit of what we do. I just also like to say, going third is easy when you have 2 presenters like Kevin and Aaron. I was contemplating putting a lot of defensible space information on this presentation, but we pretty much got that covered, which makes my job a little bit easier. So, as I already stated, we want to help individuals, communities protect lives and properties from wildfire. Been around since 2003. I'm just going to give you a rundown of what we do across the 5 counties. Like I said, we're largely volunteer driven. And so what that means is we have neighborhood ambassadors embedded within communities, spreading the good word of wildfire mitigation. And so right now we have Evan Harris from Silverton, who is your wildfire adapted ambassador. But if there are more folks in Silverton or in the county that are interested in talking to your neighbors and spreading the good word, please let me know. I work with HOAs and communities and try to help them wrap their head around what wildfire mitigation can look like on their property. We do have other programs that are available throughout the 5 counties. Mainly the one I want to pitch right now is our site visit program, currently in talks with both Jim and Bevan to try to make this available conveniently and quickly for folks in San Juan County. I mostly operate in western La Plata County, but also pass with San Juan County. And so if you're interested in understanding on your property, what does this fire mitigation look like? How can you protect your structure from embers on site? Reaching out to myself, Jim and Bevan, we're going to kind of come up with a plan of attack so that we can provide those hour-long site visits and provide you with the information you need to know about protecting your structure from wildfire. Like I said, this is going to be pretty quick. We partner with a lot of agencies and organizations, many of whom are in the room currently. I had some slides here about before and after photos about what wildfire mitigation can look like, but I realized we're in Silverton, so maybe not everybody's lot looks like this, if you can see it. So I'm just curious, by a show of hands, how many folks live in Silverton proper? Okay, and then how many folks live outside of Silverton in the county or up? Okay, a couple. Great, excellent. How many people feel ready for wildfire season? By show of hands. Okay, that's okay. And that's an okay place to be. I just want to tell a really quick story. Like I said, I'm going to keep this short. I'm going to get us back on schedule here. But I think a lot of times when I talk to homeowners, they think it's a zero-sum game. It's all or nothing. You have to be perfect, 100% prepared for wildfire, or else it's not worth it. And that is not the case at all. I'm sure you might be rolling your eyes saying, I don't know if I believe you, Alex, but if you look at Falls Creek in the 416 fire, there's an obvious example of why you don't have to actually be 100% prepared. It just takes a community of people who are doing their part, right? If you drive through does anybody know Falls Creek, that neighborhood down there near Durango, right? Big subdivision, lots of homes, kind of interesting. They have common space all across the neighborhood, and everyone's individual parcel is a circle, 1 acre around each property. And although the neighborhood does have a lot of community open space, when you drive through there, I'll be the first to tell you that the percentage of people that have perfect defensible space, perfect home hardening is maybe not even near 50%. Yet, that is where the 416 fire was stopped in Durango. Right, so what that means, that's encouraging, because what that means is that if everybody can do just their part, doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but do their part to protect their own structure, especially in a place like Silverton, and the county, it can make a huge difference. So perhaps like one of the most important things you could do today, if some folks visited me over at my booth and I asked you a question, and I just asked you a question here today. One thing you could do is you can take this question, you can ask yourself, but more importantly, you can ask your neighbors. And that question is, do you feel prepared for this wildfire season? Right? Because just starting that conversation with your neighbor can open up the door to reach that critical mass as a community, I think. That can make a huge difference. Let's see. I think that's most of what I have. So a lot of these photos aren't really going to be applicable to Silverton per se. But my information is here. I'm happy to answer questions. Like I said, I'll keep it nice and brief, and I know we're gonna have some good panels afterwards. Parting thoughts would be: do not underestimate embers. Please talk to your neighbors about wildfire. Thanks so much.
Great, folks, very good. We're gonna just, now jump into our panel portion, which is good because the sunshine is giving us that problem. So as I wanted to mention, we're just gonna break through this. So if you do have to use the bathroom, just get up and exit the bathroom and get back. If you need any food, grab some tasty food as well. But now we're just going to jump into the panel. So if I could get the sheriff, public health, Silverton Fire, Durango Fire, EFC, and Wildfire Adaptive Partnership. I think we might need to grab some other tables or chairs. And ask some general questions. This is also the time for the audience to ask questions. So we'll do this for a while. This is certainly, I'm just going to ask some broad topics, but then I certainly want the audience to jump in. Let's see, and everybody fits. Awesome. Okay, so this panel is about prepared people and safer homes. Before we get started, let's just do a run through on name, agency, or organization, just so everybody gets a.
Alex Graff, hopefully you remember me. Yeah. Wildfire Adaptive Partnership. Steve Lawrence, San Juan County Sheriff. Scott Wilson, Durango Fire. For those that don't know, Durango Fire covers county fully capacity, that don't be to my capacity. So that's what I hear about this. Part of there, Silverton Fire.
Becky Joyce, Allen County Public Health Director.
Eric Johnson, DC.
Excellent. And also Tyler, EMS, come on up here. I forgot to grab you. Not out of the. Don't get free. So just introduce yourself, Tyler, while you're.
Hi, George, Silverton Medical Rescue.
Okay, so just we're going to give a broad topic here. So what are the most important steps residents can take now to protect their health, prepare for evacuation, and support neighbors during a wildfire? So big things: protect your health, prepare for evacuation, and help out your neighbors. Who wants to tell me?
I think everything that needed to be said has already been said. Thinking about it ahead of time, making a plan, letting friends, family know that when something happens, you have a place to go to if you need to. It's hard to plan these things specifically because you get into minutia, and when the event actually happens initially, they kind of very rapidly, but
It's hard to plan everything down to the minute. So, like I said, just be prepared, make an evacuation plan for yourself, find a friend or a family member that you can, you know, will relocate to if we need to. But other than that, I think these gentlemen have said pretty much everything that needs to be said.
All right, that's great, Sheriff Lawrence. Let's hear from, EMS. What would you, Tyler, from your experience, what have you seen during some of our bigger events, not just wildfire?
Yeah, I think if you have, it's important for folks with maybe pre-existing conditions. You know, asthma, COPD, stuff like that, in the event of fire, but, you know, be prepared to get out more quickly, even if you already have a respiratory issue. And the wildfire smoke is obviously a huge concern. And then once you get behind the eight ball, one of those conditions is really difficult for us to sort of catch up and get you out of it. And then, if you do have any pre-existing medical conditions or something that could be exacerbated, maybe having a list of those and having those ready, so if you do call us, we can have a really quick cheat sheet. That will help us identify maybe what's going on, and it can help us serve anyone better. And then that pre-existing condition, if there is a fire, can evacuate earlier. Suggest that.
Excellent. And Scott, with your experience with Wildfire County and South San Juan County, do you have any tips for people as far as preparedness, evacuation information?
Sign up for San County under digital clear alerts over here in the district or close to San County, so 500 alerts for fire meetings and people in test particular photos and plan on your power being out. We're in a very isolated place, so if power goes out, it might be out for a while. So plan on, insulate or stuff like that. Your medications.
Excellent, that's great. Clark, from our Silverton Fire, any tips we would like to relay?
Generally, we're one of these guys, especially one thing that is very many on all the rigs that brochures, just stuff like that. You go to the checklist and stuff. That's what it's considered. When usually likes to talk about your list checklist. Or I give you an idea of all the about especially in people quite helpful.
Great, that's excellent. Yeah, so we do have checklists, a lot of checklists available. Definitely grab those on your way out. It's those really help. What helps too is to make sure you get all that stuff basically gathered together before the emergency happens. So this has happened to us quite a bit over the past couple of years. I don't know if folks remember last year with the Stoner Mesa fire. We actually had smoke in air quality was quite an issue for a couple of weeks. So anyone want to address smoke and air quality issues?
Go ahead and talk a little bit about it. I'm not an expert at it, of course, but essentially we have purple air monitors around the state that you can go to the website, obviously English and Spanish, to see what the air quality index is. We all know what bad air quality is outside. A lot of the general rule of thumb is if you cannot see 5 miles away, it's really bad. And so stay indoors. If you can make a clean air room inside with have a filter, your own homemade box fan of the filter. There's websites that can tell you exactly how to do that. Close your doors, windows. If you do need to go outside, and you're high risk, especially, or just at any risk, you can buy a KN95 mask or an N95 mask from Walmart, Amazon. We all know, right? So just protect yourself that way. Also stay in close contact with your primary care physician. If you don't have a primary care physician, get one. The ER is the last place you want to end up if you have a primary care physician that can take care of a lot of issues. And then there's the EPA has an incredible document to talk about how to clean the air inside your home, but really it's a lot about your risk. And then it's a lot about exposure. And then also, I think the one thing I would want to add is just know where you're going to get your communication from. That's really important, accurate information. Where's your communication coming from? Not everybody uses social media or Facebook. If you have a neighbor that you know doesn't really know how to text or use their phone, help them, keep them in communication if you are on their social media. We at Public Health will be putting out all of the state's air quality advisories as they come in. So we will put them out on Facebook, social media, we'll post them on the government site or the post office. We'll do as best we can to get the information out. We do have a wonderful senior center that also disseminates information via a flyer to our population that may not use that. And all of this will be available in English and Spanish. So any questions at all, just make sure you let people know as well.
Excellent, thanks, Becky, that was really good. Any questions for our emergency folks? Yes.
I have a question, kind of going off of what you said, and we feel about, like, being compared, is there any sort of resource in the county where people might have mobility issues or need additional help during these evacuations, where, like, neighbors can feel prepared to help with that, and they consider, like, providing rides, or a place to stay, like, is there any sort of that?
Absolutely, yeah, that would be both EMS and is Carrie may have left the room, but Carrie is, she left. So Carrie Metzler, who operates our senior center, she can coordinate that with people who have access and functional needs. So that's a big item. Any Carrie, Tyler or Becky, anything you want to add with that? Okay.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Terry's the.
Yeah, and we can post her information.
And say Harry also keeps a list of any senior citizens in town. Anybody who's not doing my medication run, who is not on our list, or you're not down for that are not on our list. Please get them on, I know some of that's but I used to still in the play board and keeping that up. Kind of, you know, anybody who's restricted on this.
Yeah.
It is this, really.
Excellent, thank you, Deanna.
Speaking of like the power going out, and then Becky mentioned education with post office, power goes out. Where is the like dedicated locations that we could get?
So as long as you have communication, it would still be social media. It's also signed up for Nixle, we'll talk about that. And that's our emergency alerting system. Those are the two primary.
If like the cell service goes with it, like because you get busy and stuff.
Yep, and cell service has gone out before, so we do have basically communication points, so going to fire or EMS or the courthouse, and we actually have Starlinks that we'll set up so people could use those as communication hubs. Go there, get their information to find out what's going on. Willie? We are working on a program with the radio station, and it is in process. I don't know, Alex, would you like to give a summary of that?
Right now, we're working, funding, to update all our to the radio station to make sure, that in case of emergency, anyone that, emergency services, would be trained to go and turn on the radio and, make that, we are now online, and we just got to train very much further than that. So hopefully, for wildfire season,
Great, thanks. And that, that is an in progress project, but we're hoping to get that done. Timeline.
We're our KPC and all volunteer groups, so it's just like kind of a matter of getting everyone on the same page about it. But yeah, it's hopefully before fire city events up. We have those issues in place. We're currently moving our transmitter, some more equipment back to section. And so since we have that all in place, we can start.
Awesome, all right, thanks. Yeah, so when that does get complete, we'll make a lot of announcements about it.
Something too about, that was such a great point about transportation. Sound County is not certified in transportation service, unfortunately. But thank goodness we have the Plata County, Human Services, and so they like to have to do evacuations or find shelters, transportation, etc., to evacuate people. The Plata County actually serves our area for that, so we start coordinating as well, especially for mobility challenges. We also have backup generators in case if you need to charge your devices. We always have one at the Miners Hospital where public health is because of our vaccine supply. We will always have a backup generator that comes on. And then the senior center, a lot of times, Harry and a few of us will stage backup. Well, there is backup generators there that you can come in and charge your apparatus. Where else am I missing, guys? So there are, keep an eye out for that to see where, because if you do have cell service, we all have that difficulty of keeping in charge. There are massive amounts of places to come charge them.
Yeah, excellent. And John Zarkis, do you want to mention about the generator that we're about to acquire?
I've been working with the county.
Okay, go ahead and introduce yourself. Yep.
John Larkin, Silverton. I've been working with the county here the last month or so about, and we're actually in the process of getting a big generator, which will have all of what we're talking about. So hopefully we'll have it 2 or 3 weeks, we'll have it in town. For Wildfire season, and it's a good collaboration between the county and
John, will it be fixed or mobile?
it'll be mobile. You can pull up, push it, and put it anywhere we want.
Nice. All right, thank you on that. Okay, now we're gonna just switch gears a little bit and talk about home hardening and structure hardening. So this is for our other folks. So what are the top 3 home hardening actions residents should take first? So top 3. So Aaron, Scott, or Alex, will jump in.
I'll go first. Let's see if our 3 align or not. Number 1, I see most frequently, and I would assume you're wrong, but there's removing fire files from the front deck. Okay, maybe some people have some work to do now. Second would be enclosing underneath a deck so that embers can't get underneath by some means. Cheapest option would be 1/8 metal mesh screening. And then the third one, maybe less of a concern here as we're out of that ponderosa belt, but really looking at fine fuels and debris in corners up against your structure. It's kind of similar to the Jack's conversation, but I think those are top 3. I'm not getting all of them.
I'm gonna add wooden fences, so you go to like Palisades, small fires and barn fires about countries. A lot of homes burn, fences, they're basically used in your house. And everyone has a wooden fence, like they care about sockets and things, so if you evacuate, so your gauge like break that, cut that use, that's just an emerging science like everything like that. Fences are burning things like half the fire passes.
No, you're gonna find the one problem is that first 5 foot, fire-free pipe. Try to keep things that are combustible out of that area. We want like gas cans, lumber, try to keep plants out there as best you can, limit your landscaping in that area. We don't want embers landing there and being able to bring them to stuff.
All right, yeah, those are very good. Any questions? Yes.
So, feel like a hooping makes that. Give it all vegetation, fuel, you know, a large propane tanks, fairly consistent with fires, the barbecue ones that, you know. It takes a lot, really massive, get the tanks, so the bigger the better, the fuller is the better, but. Yeah, people like your house to know, like, what's that, part of the, actually part of the tanks.
But the older the better, like you said, you know, coming into the fire season, it's easy to say we're gonna deplete our tanks because winter's wrapping up. But if you fill it up, it's gonna take a lot of energy to get it going, so keep that in consideration.
How do you know, I mean, so you shouldn't have to put 5 feet, not a tree, within 5 feet, you have a tree within 5 inches of. Or what it's like, how do you know if that's something you should take action on? Obviously, no one's going to it's a tree, but also don't wanna set my foot on fire with 1, 2 inches.
Alex wants to come out and take a look at your tree and tell you exactly what to do with it.
Is it a juniper? It depends, it depends. Obviously, the best course of action for lowest amount of risk is no tree. But there, depending on what species it is, you could potentially lift it up off the ground, you could cut it back from a structure. Also, you want to look at what else is it connected to, so you can to other canopies. My assumption would be no, but maybe yes. It's kind of a it depends answer, and there's more than one way to do mitigation. The only way to get risk at 0 is to not have a tree, at least 0 for that mitigation.
Brett, can I say something?
Yes,
Also,
Ryan, introduce yourself.
my name is Brett, I lived here since 2015, in Juan, firefighter, with fire mitigation now. But I just want to remind everybody that we also don't bring them here. You know, there's a nice day of like, when there's happening, and you cut something, and then you cut something else, and I try and like wipe everything down, and it doesn't work. I believe that, home hardening is very important. I also believe that we live in a very, unique town, and you know, a lot of people don't have options to put there. You know, it's like you put your wood against the fence of the house, and then you're like, got that burns. And so it's that, and then next thing you know, like, trying to cut the tree down, and it's like, you definitely, I think it's important to have somebody that is well versed in this to come check it out, but also there's a reason why there's a ready, set, go checklist. So when there's a fire, you get all burnable materials away from your home. If you're elderly, then maybe you do it before because you're slower, but if you're young and available and here, you know, it's like, yeah, I put my wood like that. So when there's a fire, it's like, yeah, we do it very good. So that's good.
All right, thanks. Ryan, just one quick, just tell folks about what you are doing now in Silverton.
Yes, I'm fire mitigator, worked with Wildfire, adapted a few times, they're awesome, highly recommend them. And I've been working largely in Ridgeway and Durango. Fire mitigation around here from the CAS and everything. But yeah, I'm from the government, private, and happy to get home here, so.
Great, thanks. All right, one more question, we'll move on.
To go back to the propane.
Yep.
Last year I received a different paper, about when we use propane fireplace, propane heater and grill and stuff like that. But I'm wondering, what stage of environment?
Yeah, so fire restrictions, that's actually going to be panel 2, so hold on to that question, and we'll answer it again.
So I was looking at you, Ryan, said, I think this meeting started so what it's been, because buzz around town. That's not being able to have these Saturdays, so. And honestly, we still, we used to, and we, some of us live on shotgun lots when we can't get started away from them, so. So no one's feeling we need to totally win, even the fire units. So nobody wants to buzz and we share, so. Really back here, Ryan, we set up next year, I think that a staging process for fire, should we have fires on meeting? Obviously, we need to discuss and for your times.
Yep, thank you, Bruce, on that, and I do think, all of this, we need to adapt it to our community and make sure that it works for us. So really good to bring it up. All right, thanks to panelists. I do want, let's see, Aaron, stay on, and everyone else, thank you very much. And we will move on to panelists. Okay. U.S. Forest Service, Town Public Works, and MSI. Right. All right, folks, let's hold it together. We're gonna almost we're getting through this. So the first question is, what are current forest and fuel conditions? I'm just gonna, this is kind of a big one, but just between maybe Forest Service and BLM.
I think if you show up with a tree on your shirt, then this one is yours.
Yeah, yeah.
So, hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Beck. I'm the acting district ranger for Columbine Ranger District, on San Juan National Forest. I am relatively new. I came to, the Rango, LaPlata County area in November. So this is my first fire season here at Fort Warner. So, I'm not feeling super prepared yet. That asked the question earlier. So anyway, so yeah, the current forest and fuel conditions, it is crispy out there. So I came here from the Front Range of Fort Collins, where I thought it was kind of dry and crispy there. We've all been experiencing drought for a longer period of time in that part of Colorado. And so the map that we saw earlier, that Jim showed us earlier, that showed a lot of western Colorado lighting up kind of orange, yellow, red. It's been dry here and it's been dry for a while. And so those fuels are incredibly receptive to fire. And so we're looking at potentially, like Kevin, you've been out quite a bit already. So we're already experiencing an active fire season on the San Juan National Forest. And it's not even Memorial Day yet. So I would say that we're ready for some action this year.
Great, excellent, thank you very much. And BLM.
Hey, everybody, John Bluesky, former BLM fire. I'm representing the new government agency of the United States Wildfire Fire Service. If I can just explain this very exactly itself. The Department of Interior, giant umbrella, and under that umbrella, there's multiple agencies: the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Park Service, the BLM, the Fish and Wildlife Service. So they're all government agencies under the Department of Interior. All of those government agencies have fire resources attached to them, much like the Forest Service here, which they're part of active. So just recently, all of those fire resources were pulled from those government agencies and they formed, actually put into a giant government blender. And then what came out of that blender is the United States Wildland Fire Service. So it's its own fire service out of the Department of Interior agencies. So 3 months ago, I was a BLM fire employee for 15 years, and now I'm 2 months into the fire service. What does that really mean? Nothing really. Like everything will remain the same as in wildfire support. We still work with our partners, Forest Service, volunteer fire stations. We're still fighting fire the same. We will have a new logo and a new name. We're just trying to be more efficient in what we do. So that's really it for everybody here. So. To answer the question, I totally agree with what the Forest Service. I represent the BLM lands. That's what I can speak on. So the lower lands, we're always dry. Pinyon juniper forest, grasslands. We just had this recent weather. All of our indices are elevated. This is just a Band-Aid. We are always predicting a fire season. How that will end up, I can't really say. I can tell you in October how this fire season was gonna go. But much like everybody here, we're anticipating an active fire season.
So I have,
Yes.
so hi, my name is Juan again. I am also new, executive director of the Mountain Studies Institute. So we are a nonprofit based here in Silverton and Durango that works very closely with the fire team, but previously BLM and the Forest Service. And we do a lot of monitoring for health and monitoring health. And one of the messages that we want to share, similar kind of to what Ryan was saying, is that, you know, take the panic down a notch. We can't predict fire season. Yes, we had record low speed this year, snow in our public is down, snow is down. That is not the only element that is gonna forecast for fire season. So how our monsoon comes in this year is gonna matter a lot, whether it comes in early, whether it comes in later, how long, what kind of precipitation we're seeing, at what intervals, that's all gonna impact how we feel the fire season here in Silverton. And so don't think about it as like 1 + 1 = 2, we didn't have snow. There's definitely been good fire season. There's a lot more happening with the weather conditions and different pockets across the landscape. It's gonna impact not only how fire is here, but how fire is gonna spread. So there's just a lot more publication and nuance to think about that. So just want to highlight that before we can jump back into like, yes, we're in the long drought. Yes, there's more risk than usual. No, it does not necessarily mean that there's going to be a fire, but yes, we should be all taking this very seriously.
Great, thanks. And then, our state forest, you guys want to add anything to that? Okay, yeah, good, that's great. Okay, so I'm gonna merge a couple of these questions, really with our, utilities folks and public works folks, but basically, how could wildfire or post-fire affect road access and utilities and water quality? So that's really.
You looked at BGI.
Right.
I'll go ahead. Yeah. Nature is the greatest builder. So if you take away your grass, you take away all those things that are underneath holding that soil. And then guess what happens? When it rains, well, then all that material comes down, and where did it go down? Here's a creek. Then that pollutes, and that's a pretty loose term, pollutes the water. And that's the drinking water where we take it, and then we have to, by state, it has to be, make a certain clarity. That's the easiest way to, I call it turbidity, but also to say clarity. And that is, I have to follow those rules. So if we were to have a fire in one of our watershed, it includes that. I can't use that. There's not enough treatment that I can do to make it to the standards of water quality. So I would actually have to lose that watershed for a while, because unfortunately, it doesn't grow back in 1 year. It takes 3, 5, you know, that's all dependent, especially in high altitude. So that's what would really affect watershed.
Excellent. And would you want to just point out what our watersheds are where we get our drinking water?
Yes, we actually have 2 watersheds. One of them is out towards South Mineral Bear Creek. That's a long watershed, so we pull a lot of water there. And then our secondary one, or vice versa, however you want to term it, is Boulder Creek, which is right up the road. And we have those 2. They're good sources, but I'm always looking for a third. Got something that works.
Excellent. Hey, Jeremy, you know, about the utility side,
Sure, I
or?
can speak a little bit, at least to the palette, sure. My name is Jeremy Fox, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for San Miguel Valley Association. Well, member on distribution cooperative. And I think it's important, we've been talking a lot about risk and wildfire today, but it's important to understand where you're coming from. Tri-state directional transmission is where we keep power for you guys, we just maybe that you're in town. And there are 2 main transmission lines that lose the come into town, which is where the power comes from. I think it's important to understand that, you talk about power being off in a wildfire situation here, power could also be off due to a wildfire situation somewhere else.
Like I said, with the tri-state. These lines that come in and bring power here could be under risk somewhere else. It's just important to understand that it may not necessarily be a fire right here, it's causing an even effect. Other than that, Seminole Power, I've worked for the last several years, really bolstered the system here in town. At the substation, working with tri-state, working to clean our vegetation around our power lines, overhead power lines, so we see our tree crews here. Taking out around the lines, that just trying to mitigate the risk. And we could very likely go into a system setting change as we get into the wildfire season. And when we do have a fault on the system, expect a little bit longer out. We require our alignment to go double check and make sure everything's fine and we're re-energized. So you may experience a little bit longer.
Excellent, great, thanks for that information. And then, Clint from CDOT, would you just like to give the perspective on CDOT with wildfire?
Yeah, federal are under transportation, well, convert data now. Okay, so be aware, there's fire to the south, that's the highway. Highway supposed to down your own access, it's not a grade right or the grade, vice versa, so definitely plan ahead. Very well, county roads, possibly get out, but that will drive. And more side by side. And then post fire flooding is a huge issue with us too. If there's any ground that got cleared above the highway, and we get some heavy rain after fire, you will get a lot of side on flooding. So be aware of that. If you have any fire in this area from the early, we start to get weather. Kind of dead, you know, if it's going to be raining, we leave down, there's they told them maybe go different way there. You get affected by that return.
Great, yeah, thanks for that. Excellent. Okay, our last topic is on fire restrictions. What do the residents need to know? So, who wants to take that exciting topic?
I can do restrictions.
Yes.
So, that's one of my main jobs that I do for the fire service, based out of Montrose. We analyze all these different indices from weather, fuels, from weather stations all around, and we advise the field office managers on where we're at with conditions. And it's really the field office managers at the BLM level and the field office to make that decision whether to go or to not go. Usually stage 1 fire restrictions only have a campfire if that's the areas designated camping. Stage 2 fire restrictions means no campfires at all. And then obviously stage 3 or closures pretty rare, especially for BLM and Forest Service. We just can't really manage the closures of everything. But also associated with the stage 1 and stage 2 restrictions, it might be like spark arrest or general equipment, limited smoking in certain areas, and all of these stage 1 and stage 2 restrictions are signed orders by the field ops manager and are posted on government websites. We try to do our best to sign public land areas and just say, make a very clear message of what we can and can't. When we decide to go into restrictions, this is based off a lot of different avenues. So even cause fires, is that elevated? Fire conditions, is that elevated? So there's a lot of check boxes that have to get marked off before we go into stage 1, which we try to keep out of stage fire restrictions as long as possible. So whether there's summer, we get visitors from out of state, honestly. But when it's time to pull the trigger, know that it's based on a science, what we've been looking at, indices and then going.
So it's very similar for our service. We use probably the same science to guide us to whether or not we should go into fire restrictions. With the Forest Service level, it's the Forest Supervisor that makes that determination. And we try to be in alignment with our partner agencies. So with the BLM, with the surrounding tribes, with counties. But an important thing to keep in mind is that the land that you manage looks a lot different than the land that I manage. And so we might not be in lockstep going into fire restrictions because there might be more concern in the lower juniper than there is maybe in the higher, wetter conifer forest or vice versa. And so we try really hard to be guided by the science and to make decisions that are going to be as least impactful as possible to allow people to be out enjoying their national forests and lands with the campfire. But when the time comes when we do need to go into fire restricted business stage, certainly that you'll see on BLM land. So stage 1 fires will only be permitted in an actual like constructed fire rings in a campground or in a picnic area. Stage 2, no fires anywhere, and smoke everywhere. That's it. And we really don't want to go into stage 3 restrictions, which are forest closures for degrees of deterrent. It's really difficult, and most of us are here in this part of the state because we really love our public lands and love to be out there experiencing.
Great. And just from the county perspective, we try to align with the restrictions that both BLM and the Forest Service are going into, so it's not confusing to the public. It can get a little challenging with BLM to Forest Service because they can have different concerns. But with that, let's open it up to questions.
So how regional is that ban? Like, are we being lumped in with PJ and Cortez when you put a fire ban? How broad an area are you forecasting?
I can answer for San Juan National Forest. They split it by elevation. So there's basically a lower elevation area and then upper elevation area, and we fit in that upper elevation. So they can go and correct me at any point, but basically lower elevation can be in fire restrictions where upper elevation, which is all of San Juan County, cannot. Does that make help? Okay. And BLM is.
Yeah, so the BLM is the Gunnison Field Office, which is also the high elevation of the BLM side. And same thing, we're looking at indices, and so we would advise the Gunnison Field Office manager, John Klinsky, they would, based on our science that we're seeing in the fire side, if he should go, or the field office should go in around fire restrictions. That would be my field. Does that answer your question?
Yep, there's. Riz, did you have a question?
If there's any technology that help folks in determining what the restrictions and their exact locations is a challenge here. And we've got town association and county, BLM, USF, neighboring counties and state. It's a lot of the jurisdictions we've got this information. It seems like the state aid should be able to have an access to the art brand and fire control. And so that comes in, it's not only that, and I follow up as. But to
yeah, so I can speak on the BLM. So if you want to write this down, you go to blm.gov. It's our main website, and there's a tab right on the right hand corner called restrictions, fire restrictions. You click on that, it shows all the states, the United States, including our Colorado. There's a giant map of all the field offices in Colorado that's color coded states 1, 2, or 3. It's like yellow, red, and green, and you can kind of zoom in and see which field office is in your county. That's the public things. It is in stage 1 or 2 restrictions, and there is also a description of what each restrictions are. Oh, and also you probably go to your local field lands office in town, you can make a mask for every shit. Usually has the restriction order, hopefully you get it.
Yeah, does that cover the BLM or restrictions that you're in forest or separate? And yeah, I was thought it was done. So within your that there was some education restrictions.
Yeah, understood. So it is the Forest Service is separate from the BLM. We do handle it differently. We tend to go in like Jim was saying, we have our high elevation zone and our low elevation zone, and those will cross county lines. They're really unique vegetation sites. Different parts of the state, what I have is it's a front range. We did fire restrictions by county. In the forest that I worked for there were 9 different counties, and that was just made it really, really confusing for us and for the public to try and determine. So it varies. It is very confusing. We do try to mark sign these very well on out on the landscape. So Kevin will spend a lot of his summer going around when we are in restrictions and making sure that they are clearly posted, so that when you're coming on to national forest system lands, that you know. They're also available on our website, they tend to be, in the social media presence that the San Juan National Forest has, will include all of that, the drawing arrow will include it, should show. There are a number of different places to get that information.
And you know, the Forest Service also comes with the, wilderness area restricted as well.
Yes, yes, so the wilderness, areas that are managed by the National Forest, so here's, so yeah, this would be covered in the Forest Service part.
Also, just to tack onto that, we host fire restriction calls when we're in the core of the fire scene, Forest Service, BLM, county resources, either like bi-weekly or every week to discuss indices that we're seeing from government agencies, what the counties are seeing, so we're all talking bi-weekly of deciding what to go in, what not to go in and supporting each other. So we're not just randomly deciding. I'm always in myself.
Okay, yeah, fire restrictions are always, shall we say? Yeah, I'm glad you said it, not me. Okay, let's get one last question.
Who sets the fire restrictions here at Silverton? And if I'm propane and fire instance, during a fire.
Would you like to raise your hands?
It's an action between myself and generally, we will follow Forest Service and they're training, so
Yes.
I believe it's great. So within the town of Silverton itself, the town actually visual to the fire brigade. Right. Okay, outside, the incorporated areas of town, the county, it goes to the fire band on, strictly on fire brigade. Of course, BLM does on BLM and then we actually have 3 different forest services. We got the San Juan National Forest, under Monterey, Rio Grande. And the county in general tries to duplicate whatever the federal land they're doing. So if BLM puts in a fire restriction, we impose it so we're trying to be uniform throughout the county. It's a little more difficult to do when Forest Service implements a fire ban and BLM does or vice versa, or one of the other forest does vice versa. So generally, once one federal agency puts out a fire ban, the county agency follow suit on that. Say with taking the fire ban off, we'll wait, we'll wait for the federal agencies to take it off. We do, if it can, again, it can be complicated. I mean, you can be in a situation where if you're on this side of the road, you can't have a fire, or across the street, you're not. You can't, so a different federal agency, you can't have some fire. And that's not the best for law enforcement, trying to work something. Thanks.
Awesome, thanks for that clarification. Really, yes,
I'm sorry, I believe bring some up on there. Those don't know me, I'm just trying to reduce the fire share with this fire ordinance for the last 3 terms. And our right here is unusual in that rep to us has been things. We have a lot of those coming to our county, they're not living right past the woods, they're campfire in this time. While I got the confusion about jurisdiction and rules in certain places, we go specifically, we wrote these set of rules that as a problem. But one of the biggest problems we've seen lately are these propane violations. That is a golden flame. So the problem is from campground right next door or campground a mile down the road, signs of the fires are no, fires are not. They don't know that that's not propane stove. They just show up and say, okay, start a fire. And so for a small apartment like ours, that means we're getting called and also going to go out and really go up and lost. See, that's a real fire, a propane fire. By the way, it's inappropriate. We're in such extreme fire danger. Those things, and I'm saying why people think they're safe. They stop over, they turn off, but
I've seen kids catch the woods on fire with s'mores. I've seen drunk kids break on fires in them. So my fingers, so it's more the message they send them to campground school and 1 to 2 miles away. It's a problem. Right, it's people bottom that's not all of the it's never seen this problem, the thing about it. So, while there's new faces in the room, you turn around, and soon you get your face and bring your face on it.
Excellent. Thanks for that clarification, Bruce. Let's hold any topics, find a subject matter expert in the room about fire restrictions and talk their ear. So thanks, panel. Appreciate it. I'm just going to close in talk, and then we're going to open it up to just broad questions and answers. Hopefully answers. So next steps. So before you leave tonight, make sure that you're signed up for mixed alerts. We have posters put around the room, and that is our emergency alert system. And complete the questionnaire. This is very key. We have a box right here. If you have a completed questionnaire, just drop it right in here. And then choose one action in the next week. Fill the go bag, clean your gutters, move the firewood. And then just basically connect with the neighbor. Neighbors are very important in emergency situations. This is an easy one too. Download this app called Watch Duty. This gives you basically an idea of what wildfires are going on in the entire country. But it also gives a very good situational awareness on what's going on in our area. So this is really something we're encouraging people to do this year. I'm going to blast through this. Just one thing I want to point out, we have a lot of handouts in the room over here on defensible space. So just grab one of those and this will give you all the zones that you need to look at to basically protect your house. So here we go, official alerts, Watch Duty. Make sure that you're signed up for that. And then building an emergency prep bag. We already heard this. The 5 Ps, people, pets, prescriptions, papers, personal needs, and crisis items. So we have 3 go bags that you can grab in the side room over here, and you can just start building that with checklists. So here's our one action next week. And then in the next week, it's called the home ignition code. I want you just to grab the handout. Those are the great detail on how to do this. No evacuation basics. The when, where, how, who, what. And the know your neighbor, so just get to know folks. If you have any folks in your neighborhood that have any kind of mobility needs, people without reliable transportation, medical equipment, help them out, but just connect with them. And if you have pets or livestock, if you do have in San Juan County, make sure you have a plan for them as well. So I've gone over this. What I do want to let you know is we're going to be doing future workshops broken out by neighborhoods. So up County Road 2, County Road 110, Red Mountain area, Cascade Village, and South County. We're going to just be localizing these workshops so people can give really good input. And with that, I'm going to open it up to Q&A from the audience. I have all of our subject matter experts ready to answer questions. And yes, from Colorado State Forest.
Thank you everybody for coming out. We're going to see that is really important. benefit for your community. So I really appreciate Jim's directive on taking this back up. The last update of our website is from 2013. This is 2026, right? So about 13 years. But still love the question. I really do love it's gonna make this job easier. It's gonna make my job easier. It's actually, which is a great venture this year. So, this is a wonderful turnout. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for that. And Colorado State Forest is the one who actually approved the plan, so it's good. Everybody showed up. Any other burning questions that folks have? We'll keep it tight, but I do want to get folks' questions answered. Yes, Steve.
I hate to do this, Jim. I apologize for bringing this up at the very end. But a lot of these forests around Kindle and Sultan are overgrown because of fire suppression for the last 50 to 100 years. Can you guys address Forest Service? Can you guys address that? What's being done to thin out the debris and stuff? I know it's expensive.
You want to talk about our company?
Yeah, sure. In my presentation earlier, we talked about fire burning or forest here surrounding Silverton, and because it's that 200+ year interval, compounded by the fire suppression in the past century, the forests are reached up and not. That's healthy as potentially they could be in the absence of fire. So going forward, as far as trying to mitigate some of the hazards in these overstock forests, it's improvement as well. Since it's such a large area, pretty steep ground, it's hard to even describe fire in Wisconsin. As I was talking about earlier, East conifer is. When it burns in very specific set of conditions. It's kind of an all or nothing. It burns really hot and violently in a large area or fire starts and right now, our actions as the Forest Service in addressing the river shot forest and makes conifer is exclusively related to timber plants. So that's kind of the tool that we have in the tool bag right now as far as addressing the issue. There are some emerging efforts, particularly speaking to CE's and NEPA, National Environmental Protection Act. It's in the infancy stages of exploring the mix of conifer as they've been before. So those are in the very, very, very infancy. How we need to approach mix of conifer with native stratified.
And so that's where the staff that I work with come in. So we have folks that work on the timber side of the house and folks that work on the fuel side of the house. And we're starting to work together more to identify these opportunities. So like Kevin said, the big tool in forests like this is timber harvest. And so trying to figure out, okay, what would that look like? Where would that be most beneficial on the landscape in terms of mitigating the risk of that catastrophic fire coming? And so being really strategic about where we're placing these and then potentially introducing self-destruct fire in those areas.
Yes,
I just follow up on that real quick, first of all, all this in use of United States Institute, and we've been partnered with the same on National Forest. We basically look at how wildfire treatments can actually optimize for hydrology in particular. So once we get to the point where we can't do mechanical fitting, we are actually taking data from Red Mountain Pass and the honors behind mill down in the forest to quantify how these different forest structures that influence accumulation, retention, and subsequent soil moisture. So hopefully, coming down the line, when we're able to do these types of things, we'll have multiple signs of knowing the type of trees that we do. So that we could have longer so much chemistry, we can increase the impact of the fleet. That's just something part of that which you real besides that, we can water.
Nice, thanks for that. Real quick, that's a excellent question to get onto the questionnaire. So, yeah, Deanne.
Can we kind of describe again what the maps are for, why it's important, and that people are just definitely.
Yes, absolutely. So we do have 4 maps placed around the room. And what we would like you to do is just basically write your ideas on concerns. So if you're worried about an area that has a lot of beetle kill or is overgrown, or those would be just 2 examples. Just go to the map, and we want you to write on them. Most maps you're not allowed to, but just draw a circle around it and say, I'm concerned about this. Get it, get those questions on, and then we're gonna transcribe it onto, into the, CWPP. You can also use the, little sticky notes as well, if you prefer that. So those are a great tool. Grab somebody, to do that with, and just make it interactive on, like, I'm really concerned about this area, or getting those bits of information. I'll just field a couple of more questions, but then we'll just break people out to let them do that and finish their questions. Dustin.
So I understand that the meeting process has that for any federal lands. I believe there are some workarounds, the wrong word, for that, like the national strategic wildfire, something or others. What is the Forest Service and I guess the OEM's this critical areas around Silverton, like maybe a watershed like there, is that something for some of the cities is doing?
Absolutely, yeah, we certainly are. There are efficiencies, what you call them efficiencies, not workarounds. When it comes to the fire. There are a number of tools that are available to us. So Forest Service, the entire Department of Agriculture just provides the way that we go and find. So we're still very much in the update, but there are a number of different tools that can allow us to assess and develop the project, assess it, get through all of the deployments, we get on the ground implementations there. So that the foundation is correct.
Great. Yeah, that's a good back and forth on that. Any other questions? Oh, yeah.
So that kind of like the GIS, different stuff, how important for the National Weather Service, right, the lag. That's how it's starting.
It's, the National Weather Service and the data that they provide, which goes into the report nesting for announcing rest flags. The same data that goes with those warnings is going into our that allows us to evaluate the fire danger. And then we, like John mentioned, we take the hard data from the National Weather Service, from our remote weather stations, the world data, and we take that to the zone fire management board, and with science and data and folks who sit on that board are essentially ground truthing that data. Is what we are seeing with the National Posters, Dallas very mentioned, is what they are saying valid. And if that is so, start the conversation of restrictions. And then once we start that conversation of restrictions, then it's we're taking the microscope to it every single morning and get our received it's constant evaluation of our fire reviews with the breakthrough. We've mentioned, the human starts, that's a large component of like fire review. More importantly, is their public behavior modification tool. The reasons I mentioned earlier, human caused wildfires are disproportionately more catastrophic because generally it can start under more severe conditions as naturally occurring stuff. So recently in the low country surrounding Durango and to Archuleta County, you had Human caused wildfires, that you've given us fire managers cause for concern. So when we're seeing these human caused fires with their prevalence on the landscape and have the National Weather Service data, it's kind of a sort of making magic, really ground truthing, verifying data.
Awesome. Okay, one last question. Yes.
I haven't heard you talk about that. You mentioned it?
I talked about it a little bit, but not in huge detail.
David's, how do we get the word out and?
Yeah, so basically, Nixle would be the number one way that we would communicate it. And then we would also use social media, email lists, basically, and flyers, any way we could get that information out. And with that, we would basically say, it's time to evacuate. We would tell you where to go. And when we put out that order, it is a sheriff's order. So it is basically a legal order. So when we say evacuate now, that means go now, not like go in 5 minutes, go when I feel like it, go now. So basically there's a north way or a south way, and we will tell you where to go and basically what actions you need to take. Great question.
But we did, during the ice fire, we didn't have the get ready to possibly evacuate, so you would put that out.
It's, yes, and it's all basically contingent on the situation on the fire. Some of the fires, we can have a little bit more heads up, so we can say, get your stuff ready. But there could certainly be situations where we're not telling you to get ready, we're telling you to go. And that's why having a go bag is extremely important. And having that just ready to grab and leave. And, you know, we're gonna, if you have a family or friends, communicating with them, saying, hey, do you have your stuff ready? We have to go. So it's always contingent on the situation. Excellent questions. All right. All right, thank you, everyone. Let's thank the all of our speakers and agencies. So when we have the draft ready, we will make that publicly available for more comments. And then if you do have time, those maps, and also the agencies will be hanging around. So if you have more questions, hit them up for free stuff. Thanks, everybody. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Good, dude. Good turnout. Yeah.
There it is. Yeah. Thanks.
I'll ask you.
You're good.